The movie Sister Act couldn't have been made 70 years ago. It may not seem like a controversial movie to you, but here's why. It's not just because roles for black women were limited to slaves, maids, or wives, because that was also true. But just like the limits of roles available, the range of characterization was limited for female roles in general, and for nuns in particular. The sexual struggle of nuns and priests was a very popular conflict in old Hollywood. In The White Sister, a 1923 silent movie and also a 1933 sound remake, a woman becomes a nun after thinking her beloved has died in a war, only to have him return and unsuccessfully beg her to renounce her vows. In the 1936 Technicolor movie, The Garden of Allah, a monk flees a monastery but in the end returns after his devout wife, Marlene Dietrich, discovers his past. In the 1947 British film Black Narcissus, a sister goes mad in a remote Himalayan convent when she forsakes her vows for a man, only to find her love unrequited.
I gave up my vows. I finished with them up there.
I see.
I love you.
Like The White Sister, a misunderstanding causes a woman in the 1947 Green Dolphin Street to retreat to a convent and then spurn her lover when he tries to find her again. Black Narcissus star Deborah Kerr played a nun again in 1957's Heaven Knows Mr. Allison, about a sexually frustrated Marine stranded on a Pacific island with a sister who remains faithful to her vows, even though he harshly points out there's no point in her being a nun in those circumstances.
Now, what's the point of being a nun if we're all alone? Answer me that. Can't, can you? Because there ain't no point. We don't belong to nothing beyond this island. All we got is it and each other. Like Adam and Eve, like we was the first two people on earth, and this is the Garden of Eden.
By 1959, America's admiration for people sacrificing happiness and human companionship for ecclesiastical asceticism had visibly eroded to the point that the nun story could be told. Audrey Hepburn plays a nun who renounces her vows in the end, although due to ethical compromises under Nazi occupation, not romantic conflict. It's still a relief to see a nun finally kick the habit for any reason. But just as nuns were finally free to leave the convent on screen, actress Dolores Hart left Hollywood behind for the church in 1963. Then just a few years later, Julie Andrews could leave a nunnery in The Sound of Music without controversy or public outcry. Since then, the depiction of nuns in film has ranged from the comical to the sinister. One of the most ironic movies about a nun was the 1966 film The Singing Nun, starring Debbie Reynolds. This was supposed to be a semi-autobiographical film about Jean-Paul Marie Decker's a real-life nun who had a chart-topping hit song in 1963. At the end of this fictionalized account, Debbie Reynolds gives up her singing career and disappears from public view into missionary work. However, the real singing nun went on to record a song in 1967 in support of contraception called Glory Be to God for the Golden Pill, which predictably caused her to lose favor with the Catholic Church. She died by suicide in 1985 alongside her long-term partner Annie. But because the film depiction of her had basically written off the rest of her life, the popularized impression overshadowed her tragic reality. From 1967 to 1970, Sally Field starred as the Flying Nun on television, a comedy inspired by supposed real-life flying nuns like Teresa of Avila and Saint Mary of Jesus Crucified. In 1966, Rosalind Russell played a nun in the teen comedy The Trouble with Angels, alongside Mary Wicks, who would repeat this casting type in its 1968 sequel, Where Angels Go, Trouble Follows, and then again in both Sister Act movies. But if the 60s were characterized by lighter, comedic depictions of religious orders, the 70s saw the emergence of a disturbing new genre, nunsploitation. Films like The Devils, Killer Nun, and Dark Habits mixed virtue with vices, like Satanism, sex, violence, and drugs. This trend has continued to this day into modern horror films. Coming a long way from The White Sister, Sister Act depicted a black sister who was subversively also not really a nun, but actually a worldly lounge singer in disguise. Whoopi Goldberg's character parts ways with the sisters as a self-determining woman, neither ending up as a nun or with a man. While none of these things seem controversial, it was really groundbreaking, and possible because of the barriers which have been broken before it. The evolution of nuns in film is a case study in how specific types of roles open up over time. At the start, even celibate women were defined by their relationships to men, so roles that fell outside of heteronormativity were completely out of the question. Just a few years after the Nuns story, Audrey Hepburn starred in a trailblazing lesbian movie, The Children's Hour. We know this movie couldn't have been made earlier because they did make it in 1936, but the homosexuality had to be completely censored. Ultimately, the ability to depict nuns as fully developed characters expanded the roles that were available to actresses.